And this is one of the things is eagles like to fly with eagles.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to surround yourself with that, just that, that wisdom from people's experience as well. So because it takes a certain mindset.
Welcome to the Legacy in the Making show. I'm your host, LA's foremost success coach, Maree Torrey. I interview leaders and influencers who've gone beyond the superficial markers of success and claimed true fulfillment by leveraging their positions to create positive and profitable changes in their businesses and beyond. They share their stories and offer real-world, boots-on-the-ground experience that translates into practical advice to apply to your own journey. I invite you to this injection of wisdom and inspiration so you can prevail and leave your own lasting legacy. A.G. Morishita is the founder and mentor of the Movement Makers movement. His whole mission is to empower 1,000 leaders over the next 10 years to start a movement that will impact millions of lives. A.G. has been personally involved in the growth and popularity of the sushi movement. His family launched some of the original sushi restaurants in the United States and has also been one of the critical turning points of ideation for the Hug It Forward movement, which is a movement that allowed people to build 100 bottle schools in Guatemala. And if you don't know what a bottle school is, we are going to find out today. So he's advised dozens of movements on the rise, and his clients and the Movement Makers community have been featured on the New York Times bestseller list, the Today Show, TED, and many, many more. So AG, it's so wonderful to have you here today.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Maree. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. So just a little bit about myself and just, one of the things is while we've accomplished a lot of things, I struggled early on. I grew up feeling that I was always different. I was outcasted. I was firstborn in my family from Japanese heritage in the U.S. And I didn't speak English till I was 5 once I got into kindergarten. And I felt like I never fit in. I felt like I stuck out like a sore thumb and really felt outcasted and isolated. Like I remember the field trips where, this is 1984. I'm at Cabrillo State Beach. Everyone has brown paper bag lunches. And I just wish I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But being in the restaurant industry and being Japanese, I brought a bento box and, we had sushi and instead of now it's the cool thing, but back then I was ridiculed for, it's like, what a freak, all this thing. And so, I felt like I was always different. I went to college. I went to UC Berkeley for undergrad studying economics. And my college English professor, I got so bad, I was seriously looking at changing my name, my legal name to John, just so I could assimilate, just so I could fit in. And my college professor said, hold on here, before you make that decision, why don't you do some research on your name? And I did some research on the Japanese character. It's called kanji. EI is a symbol for English. So it's like, oh, well, English in England, maybe because I was firstborn. But also it's a symbol for hero, which I loved. It's like, oh, wow, that's cool. And then the JI means the power, govern, and rule or be an authority, which at Movement Makers, we highly encourage you to be not an expert, because if you're a professional, you're automatically an expert, to be an authority, but also means to heal. So I love this hero and healer. And that was the point where I just found this ownership of my name. Instead of not liking it and wanting to change it, I discovered the key distinction that, oh, I'm not different, I'm unique. And when I felt I was unique, it felt like I wasn't isolated, because different implies separation. And so that's one of the key things that's happening in society right now is when we think of people as different, it separates us. But when we see each other as unique, then we could still be connected to the whole of the community. And that gave me this confidence to step up into roles of leadership.
So many of the things that you said there completely resonate. I love what you were saying about the fact that when you researched the history of your name, it actually gave you an identity. And the identity was such a powerful one. So it was a great gift. And I do think that that's something that's really important for leaders in particular, is that we get really clear on what the identity is that we have. And we all have multiple identities that we could put on depending on which, group of people that we're interacting with. From a business perspective, being that powerful leader and being willing to see yourself as that is so important.
And here's the distinction I would say is that if you've ever felt, and I know, especially if you're watching this, you are a leader. The fact that you're listening right now means that you're leading your field. And I know that the leader's journey can be very lonely at times, especially if you're a visionary, especially if you see things that most people don't see, and that it can be very lonely. And that one of the key things is to really surround yourself with other leaders. Because, Tiger Woods didn't hang out with other golfers because they didn't see golf the way Tiger did. Tiger Woods hung out with a guy named Roger Federer, who is the top of tennis game. And so they could relate. So Tiger and Roger could relate way better to each other, or being the number one authority in their field, being dominant, than they could with their fellow peers in tennis or in golf. And this is one of the things is eagles like to fly with eagles. And you want to surround yourself with that, just that, that wisdom from people's experience as well. So because it takes a certain mindset. I love this podcast because you're bringing leaders together to connect, to communicate, and to listen, because it's hard to, in my opinion, as a leader, it's hard to receive advice from someone who hasn't been there or done that.
This concept of many leaders feeling isolated, I think it's really true. And especially when you're a visionary leader, because you have this idea of the world, this idea of a different future, and you're creating change. And we all know that as much as change is inevitable, it's also something that can make people very uncomfortable. So we have this tendency to to feel different, as you were saying. I remember when I was in high school and I was in art class, that was a word that that really bothered me, because I would do these extremely unusual paintings, and then there was another girl who would do these very illustrative things that people could relate to, and people would come into the studio at lunchtime and look at our various artwork. They wanted to see what was going on, and people would gush over her work, and then they'd come and look at mine and they'd go, "Oh, that's different." And there was always a pause before the word different. And I came to really feel very isolated and misunderstood. And I think that's kind of part of the entrepreneur's journey in a way, really, isn't it? It's a rite of passage almost.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Just wrote a post recently, actually yesterday, about the rites of passage that every leader must go through. If you really want to be a legendary leader or create a legacy, the first rite of passage is to overcome ridicule, to develop a thick skin and learn the art of not taking things personally. And then once you get over that, and where other people's opinions are none of your business, then you move to a higher level 2, and the second level phase is called violent opposition, where it may not be physical attacks, but it could be verbal or in the media or some backlash, because you're becoming more and more visible. There's a saying that if you don't have arrows being shot at your back, you're not climbing high enough. So, because the safe zone is the zone of mediocrity. And I know for our Movement Makers tribe, and I know the people you attract, one of our biggest pet peeves and we can't stand is mediocrity and seeing mediocre solutions that are ineffective. And so the secret for violent opposition is to set clear and healthy boundaries and learn how to take a stand for oneself. Now, men in general are more powerful in taking a stand. And for women, it's something that is very powerful to learn, is really to take that stand and set clear and healthy boundaries, because we work with a lot of women entrepreneurs in our program, and especially if they have children, especially if they are in the family and stuff like that. Generally, what we found on the average is women are more likely to put themselves last and put everyone else's needs first. And so this is a key lesson for women, is setting those clear and healthy boundaries. And then the third rite of passage is when you move from ridicule to violent opposition to self-evident, where the change and the transformation you see is real. And the key lesson is to not let it get to your head. I mean, if you've achieved, and I know if you're listening, it's like any level of success, when you achieve some sort of accolade or success, there's a tendency for it to get to our heads. Like, oh, we could do no wrong. Oh, we're, like we're untouchable. But then, and then generally when we get into our ego, then that's where we fall, we crash. And so the key lesson here is no matter what level of success, that you stay hungry and stay humble, and to learn how to celebrate your wins, because I've been running up the mountaintop, getting to the mountaintop, and either two things happen. I'm exhausted when I get to the mountaintop, or I'm not exhausted and I look around and say, is that all there is? Success without fulfillment equals failure. But this is the next level leadership, which I know you'll appreciate, Tony Maree, is that whenever we receive a win, it's a group win. Is that the truth is there's no such thing as a self-made man or self-made woman. It does take a village. There's some guide, there's a friend, there's a mentor. And to say that we can all get to the top by ourselves, we all know that isn't true. And also gives people hope to get out of the lone wolf mentality that we can do it by ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's so true, especially the whole lone wolf mentality. And a lot of the clients that come to work with me are dealing with those two things. They're feeling burnt out because they have been doing too much themselves and keeping too many plates spinning in the air instead of building around them a support structure that can really make that is well oiled and works well, so they can lay some of those responsibilities down. And then the other thing is that they kind of like acquired what I call the superficial markers of success. Like they've reached a certain level of success and now they're looking around and going, is that all there is? Like, what else is there to life other than this? And I think it's kind of normal and natural, especially, almost for everyone. We go through those levels, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And once we've reached that point where we're beyond survival, we're beyond kind of trying to make sure that we've got the mortgage paid and keep the food on the table and all those kinds of things. Once we've gone beyond that, that's when the conversation about legacy and fulfillment really comes in. So the trick is to kind of get you out of survival quickly. And a lot of that's to do with building systems that make things easier for you and getting the right team around you to support you. And then we start moving beyond the superficial markers of success and into really creating genuine fulfillment for you and to begin to create the beginnings of a legacy. Because I don't believe really ever that a legacy ends with us. I think we, as AG terms it, we create a movement, we create lasting change. So AG, tell us a little bit more about the bottle schools, because it's such an unusual concept and a result of such a creative solution that I don't imagine many people even know what a bottle school is.
Sure. So back around 2008, 2009, we were in a business and personal development seminar, and it was a group of 40 of us. And we have a class project while we're learning other things. And one person had an idea, felt inspired and enrolled. And this is the thing about leader. You got to enroll people into your vision. Enrolled the whole class to take this up as a class project. Around that time, there's this viral video going out with a man in Europe with a sign that said free hugs. And at first in that video, if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, at first everyone's walking past. It's like, who is this? This feels weird. And then it took one person to break through and give them a hug to make sure it's like, oh, this person's saved. And the first follower came in. And then all of a sudden you've seen more and more people receiving hugs, and they said it's acceptable. And people are so craving connection these days. And so such a heartfelt video, we were all inspired to give out hugs in San Diego, California. So within 3 days, and this is the power of the pooling of resources, because we had people of all different businesses. So we had a graphic designer design the t-shirts, a website person designed a website, another person called the local TV, a gift shop owner called the local TV news. And we started giving out hugs in San Diego in a place called Mission Beach. It's the one where there's a roller coaster right next to it. And we had t-shirts, and we're giving out free hugs in San Diego. And someone built the website with a PayPal donation link. And then we started raising money for this Hug It Forward was the name of the movement, Hug It Forward movement. And we're it blew us all away that within 3 days, we were able to put up a website, create t-shirts, get TV, and launch this movement. And at first, it was just to give out hugs in San Diego. So then what happened was the class was over, and then a core team developed, about eight out of the 40 stayed. Then they went and gave out hugs in Europe. And then they went to Central America. And when they went to this country called Guatemala, the bigger plan was shown to them. And so I want to share with you the lesson here is that even if you're not clear on what your next step is or your next level where you achieve a life of success and then you're looking for more significance in your life through a life of meaning, you don't need to have it all mapped out. You don't even need to have it be clear. You just need to follow the feeling, that oomph in your gut, and then spirit, God, universe, whatever you call it, will make it known to you. So when they went to Guatemala, they were out there just to give hugs. They found the streets littered in trash. And someone had the crazy idea of let's take the trash and stuff them in the plastic bottles, put chicken wire over it, and build schools out of them. So that's what a bottle school is. A bottle school is taking one of those, plastic 20-ounce bottles with soda, Aquafina, Pepsi, Coke, whatever, stuff the trash in there. So it takes trash off the streets, put chicken wire, put Adobe on it, and then the first bottle school has been built. And it solved two problems. One, they came for hugs, but it took trash off the streets that were not recycled and then built schools for kids to study and learn. And since that time, it's been about 11 years, over 10 years since then, over 150 schools has been built and funded just because one person had the idea to say, let's give out hugs in San Diego. So that was the biggest lesson I got when I was there at the point of ideation of how a movement can begin. And most large changing movements or game changing technologies sometimes seem like they're happening on accident, but I believe it's divine intervention. So that's the Guatemala Bottle School project, and it's unbelievable. I feel so grateful to just have experienced it firsthand right at the beginning and to see how it unfolded.
And how does that make you feel about yourself having contributed to creating a legacy in this way?
It feels amazing. Every time I tell a story, I get lit up because I know that, thousands of children are being able to have school because I played my part. I did my part and we all contributed together. And I feel like honored and blessed that I had a small part in the beginning of it. And I think if you can get this feeling and know, because this is a legacy that's going to live far beyond my years. Mm-hmm. It feels really good. I have two small children of my own. I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. I believe that it's almost like I'm contributing to my kids by contributing to others because every single person is someone's child. So it feels really, really amazing. Words can't describe the feeling I get knowing that it's made an impact, and it actually, that's what drives movement makers is really to help. Our vision is to unite all leaders to solve the world's greatest challenges, and noticing how that works. And I think it's really important to just continue to fall back on these feelings and memories. As well, because each one of us has success from the past. So to gain confidence for something in the future we haven't done before, we need to just pull on our successes from the past to give us the confidence moving into the future.
There's so much power in the collective too. It's like the collective consciousness and wisdom and creativity. Like it did just go kind of like one step at a time, and there were multiple contributors. And I think that that's something that a paradigm shift that I'm certainly interested in creating in the world is eliminating this whole kind of top-down leadership concept where leaders feel like they have to be the ones that have all the answers, and that leaves them feeling isolated as well as exhausted because they feel like everyone's relying on them and they have like the weight of the world on their shoulders. Whereas when you get to the point where it's a group creating something, oops, and I'm getting excited, so I just whacked my microphone. that it just changes the way we create in the world and allows so much more creativity. And that's one of the reasons why I started the Innate Wisdom Business Council, because it's all about creating that collective group of people. It doesn't really matter what industry you're from, like being able to access that wisdom of the collective and learning how to get out of your head and into that kind of greater sense of consciousness and connection, which is really where all the brilliant ideas come from, is just so important. I think you and I are really on the same path when it comes to supporting visionary entrepreneurs to really create that lasting legacy.
Well, and I could totally relate of, shifting my leadership skills because, generally I subscribe to servant leadership. And if you look at Good to Great, I think it's called a level 5 leader. And of being a servant leader. And some leaders are personality, charismatic leaders, like Lee Iacocca of Chrysler, but when he left, so did the company. But I could totally relate of feeling like I have this weight on my shoulders for my team. And the key difference was to empower my team to become mini CEOs of their role. And so I think that's a key, is because you want them to be empowered. And so it's kind of like, now I won't take any project unless I have someone to lead that project, like a point person. And so otherwise, it's adding more things to my plate. And I want to share one tip as far as movement makers, modern day movement makers, and things who are making a great impact. Is Richard Branson is a great example. And so I have the blessing of being really connected to one of the Virgin Unite's board members. His name is Yannick Silver. Great book called Evolve Enterprise. So if you're looking for a new venture and you want to look at creating your own socially conscious business, like a Tom Shoes, where it's a 1-for-1, Evolved Enterprise shows you various models. And my good friend Yannick wrote that book, and he serves on Richard Branson's board for Virgin Unite. And he's making the introduction for Ocean Unite, as we're looking at what can we do to have clean, drinkable water for all, protect our oceans and waters, also to restore the coral reefs and all these pieces. So, but let me share with you Richard Branson's secret move. First level leadership is becoming the owner of your business, like the real CEO, where you're owning the business, you're not operating the business. But then there's another level where you let go of the CEO role and you become like the chairman of the board. So this is how Richard Branson can own over 100 companies, and he may see each company once a year. But how he gets his CEO is he looks for the number one company in the world in that category. And then he looks for the number 2 person, the right hand in charge, and recruits that number 2 to become the number 1 of his new company, because he knows what works. And if he's hungry, because generally the number 2 will rarely become the number 1. And if they have a desire to be number 1, then they can go create it. And then what you do is you get this fast track of someone who's been there, done that, knows what it's like to be a market leader, and knows what the weaknesses of the number 1 is, where they can have a competitive advantage. But that's his secret, is he won't start any new company or program without a solid leader in place. So I won't start a new division or any new project unless I have a leader running point, and I'm just there more as an advisory role or a mentor role. And I think that could be very helpful, especially because I know you're attracting some high caliber people from all walks and all different stages of life. But I want to give some super high level tips.
A lot of what I work with my clients on is actually how to find the right team and do the best hires so they can step out of that, control role, for want of a better word, and actually feel like they've got someone that is a resource that they really can trust and rely upon to take responsibility. It reminds me of the whole concept of the drama triangle, right? It's like when we have a team where people are not really taking responsibility, you can be guaranteed that some drama is going to show up. And that's just life force wasting, because one of the key ways of stepping out of drama and difficulty is to take responsibility. So if you've got people that's their natural inclination, then you're way ahead of the game. And there are, of course, great ways that you can kind of tease that out of people through the hiring and the interviewing process. And I'm sure that that's something that you go through when you hire people, AG. Do you have any particular tips and tools for, something boots on the ground that someone can do when they're looking for a resource?
When you're building a company, I think you need to just find leaders, proactive leaders, but always look for A players. And so when you have A players will hire other A players. B players will hire C players because they get intimidated. B players will never hire an A player because they get intimidated by A players. And so B players tend to be insecure, so they hire people who are worse, so that makes them look good, which is so destructive to your company. But one of the things is interview questions, because sometimes most interviews and resumes are a big fluff job of making them look good, is you want to ask behavioral questions. Like behavior. Do you remember a specific time where you actually had a conflict with a coworker? Tell me more. What did you do? How did you resolve it? And then it's hard to lie on the spot when it's a specific incident. But people can ask, well, what's your weakness? Oh, my weakness is I work too hard. I give up myself for the company. I sacrifice. That's all that BS. So you want to do more specific, experiences, and it's hard to lie. So look for those behavioral questions. And I know you have plenty of resources as well. One thing I want to share, and I know we're almost
we're almost on time.
But real quick is, during the .com, it crashed. And that's when I went through my tough challenges. I became depressed and suicidal. And I want to share these 3 lies that I felt when I was depressed and suicidal. And it was the same 3 lies I told myself when I was struggling as an entrepreneur. And these lies are, number 1 is that I felt I was all alone. Number 2 is I felt I was broken. And number 3 is I felt I was unloved or not lovable. And because they're the same things. When I was in business, not loved is no cash flow coming in or not enough cash flow coming in. And feeling broken that I was missing something or, I didn't have enough. And feeling I was alone and isolated. So I want to share with you, the truth is, if you're open to your awareness that you're never alone, you're always with yourself. And if you do have a spiritual practice, you always have a higher power with you. But there are people who, and from a love perspective, there are people who unconditionally love you that don't even know you, who pray for you. And some of you, I pray for people. I pray for the whole world. I pray for people. Just know that there are people who want good for you. And the truth is that you're not broken, that you're whole and complete. There's nothing missing. There's nothing to fix. There's things to chip away. That's not you. But there's nothing to fix or nothing inherently broken. And just know that you're whole and complete. And you may need to chip away some dysfunctional behaviors or limiting beliefs. And I know Tony Maree can help you tremendously with that. And so, but I wanted to share those core truths because I think when we get that, and especially, especially as leaders, sometimes we use our ego and our sense of control to get to a certain level of achievement. And it's gotten us this far, but won't take us to our higher level of we have to let go of control, which I know is tough as a leader. And let go and really come from a more grounded and purposeful state that we're not doing it to prove ourselves. And that's the next level. We really want to skyrocket beyond our wildest imaginations. It's really, we have to let go of proving ourselves. And I know I've been guilty of it. So I don't, and I have to just check myself. Am I trying to, and why am I doing this? Am I doing it just to prove myself or prove others? And really check myself in that. So it's coming from a pure place. And when you come from a pure place, that's when it's sustainable and that's when it's enjoyable.
Exactly. And I think a lot of it is oftentimes to do with letting go of looking good. I think that's an addiction that we tend to have, especially in the United States, is this addiction to looking good. And it's something that we need to check at the door if we're going to be empowering leaders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Completely agree with you.
AJ, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for bringing your incredible innate wisdom and hard-earned wisdom to us here today. Where can people find you if they want to find out more?
Yeah, just go check us out at movementmakers.org, movementmakers.org. And on the site, if you want to stay connected, we offer a weekly 5 to Thrive email series, plus updates of upcoming events and videos and things like that. So it's movementmakers.org, and you can find everything you want at our website.
I'm glad you tuned in to the Legacy in the Making show. If you're genuinely interested in creating positive change in your business or your life or on a more global scale, I invite you to connect with me at tonymaree.com. That's Tony with a Y, Maree with 2 E's. When you get there, you'll find the Path to Purpose Master Plan, the truly brilliant method to make sure you're clear on why you're here. This is the absolute critical foundation to honing your instincts and leaving a legacy you'll be proud of. You can also find out about the Innate Wisdom Business Council, which is an opportunity to evolve your vision in the company of like-minded leaders, and much, much more. Thanks for listening. Remember to subscribe to the podcast, and we'll see you next time.